Hello and welcome back to the State of Education presented by One Room Education. I'm Katie, the founder of One Room Education, where we're working to empower parents, students, and educators to take back control of their education to help foster the most free and prosperous generation yet. We're doing that through an advocacy for a classical mastery-based education, as well as home-based when possible. Now, we do understand that it's not always possible to be home-based with your education. So one of the things that we do here on the State of Education podcast and over on the One Room Education blog over at one-roomeducation.com, that's the word one, O-N-E, -roomeducation.com. One of the things that we do is talk about the educational policies, policy reform, your educational options in general, what they look like, and how they're going to be affected by political changes. Now, this is a very special episode of the State of Education. It is what I would call a bonus episode because this is something we really only get to talk about pretty much once every 4 years on a national, like, everybody cares kind of basis. So here in the United States, it is currently the evening of October 13th of the year 2024, and we are in the throes of a national general election where we are working on electing our next president of these here United States. And I thought that it would be fun slash really important for us to go ahead and talk about the educational policies of both of the national level presidential candidates and take a look at what their policies actually are, what they're talking about, and how they can affect you and your choices in your education moving forward for both yourself and your students. Now, from the jump, I want to make sure that everyone knows that this episode does not endorse either candidate. It simply is here for educational purposes, and it is here so that you can inform yourself and take part in your duty to, as a citizen, to be informed and go forth and vote for the policies in the future that you want to see here in the United States. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just literally read the Republican platform and the Democratic platform. I'm going to talk about some of the differences and how I think that they might affect you and your educational choices moving forward. It is no secret that I am not a fan of the way that the federal Department of Education is used and weaponized against the individual state sovereignty on their responsibilities to educate the populace of their individual states on their economies. However, the Department of Education does fall under the executive branch, which is directly the purview of the leadership of the president according to the Constitution of the United States of America. For those of you who don't know, I am a certified social studies and civics teacher, and this is very near and dear to my heart. I think that literally every citizen should care about it. Mainly because, we're citizens and we live in a democratic republic where we're required to know how to inform ourselves on the issues and go forth and elect representatives to take those values and that information and implement it both on a state and national level. So in this episode in particular, we're talking about the national level presidential candidates and their platforms in regard to education, because it actually is something under our current system that they can do. They make a lot of promises that they have no direct effect or ability to actually implement. So whenever I hear candidates saying, oh, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I literally just look at people, I'm like, that's Congress has to do that. You can ask Congress to do it, but you can't promise that it's going to get done. And that was something that I really appreciated hearing from at least one of the candidates. Was he was asked some questions about things that aren't constitutionally allowed for the president to do, and he said, I can't promise to do that. I can promise that I'll work on it, but I can't promise that it'll get done because that's the responsibility of Congress. And that wasn't liked. That wasn't a favorable answer to the interviewer, and it got spread far and wide as, oh my gosh, he's saying that he's not going to work on this or that. No, He's saying constitutionally he's not allowed to do that, and he's not going to make false promises. So let's go ahead and dive into these. So I was trying to set up this episode and I was like, okay, well, I'll just read it kind of like bullet point for bullet point, because theoretically what these platforms should be is sort of like an outline of what they actually want to get done. But when I went in and started looking at the actual documents, the Republican Party is the only one that actually like bullet points and outlines what they actually want to do. And then the Democratic Party platform is literally like, it's just all a statement. It's a statement. It's not actually outlined in a proper way to be able to do apples to apples comparisons like I wanted to. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to read each platform and give you my commentary on it about how I think that it will affect you, your education, the future of education here in the United States. And what I would love is if you could leave your comments on what you are hearing and what you think about these platforms, either as you're going through them with me. So just leave a whole bunch of comments with random input, and I'll try to figure out where that goes. Or you can go ahead and leave one long comment at the end with your thoughts. I would really appreciate that. It helps us in the algorithms on YouTube and Rumble. And also, if you are listening on a podcasting platform, on an audio platform, please do give us a good rating. It really does help so that we can spread this information far and wide, because that's part of our mission, is to educate people on education and how it affects your daily life and the future of not just your own family and your own kids, but the future of literally civilization. So we have to try to get this one right and quit messing with it. But that's my own personal opinion. If you could please give us a 5-star rating or 4-star rating and leave us a couple of nice comments, I would really appreciate it. Or tell me how much you hate me. Either way, leave a comment. So let's go ahead and dive into this. So what I have here, the way I have this set up, is over here is the Republican National Committee platform on education, and this one is the Democratic National Committee platform for education. And then this is Kamala Harris's website. Trump's website, his campaign site, didn't actually mention education as one of his main platform points, which saddens me a little bit, but I get it because he's wanting to talk about different things. So that's fine, but that's specifically why I don't have his campaign site pulled up, because it doesn't mention it. So it directs you to the Republican National Committee platform. So that's where we are. This is page 13 of the PDF. If you would like to read along with me, I will make sure that both of these documents are linked for you in the show notes. So if you want to take a look at them for yourself, please do. Don't take my word for any of this. Take a look at them, download them, research the information, and if you have any questions, make sure to leave them in a comment and I'll do my best to answer them. Or better yet, you could get a hold of your Republican or Democrat Party headquarters in your county and ask them the questions to try to get an answer from them, because they're the ones that wrote these. So here we are on the Republican National Committee's platform here. It is titled Chapter 7, Cultivate Great K-12 Schools Leading to Great Jobs and Great Lives for Young People. I personally would have created a better title for that chapter, but that's fine. I get the point. It's a big picture kind of title. So it starts off with our commitment. Republicans offer a plan to cultivate great K-12 schools, ensuring safe learning environments free from political meddling, and restore parental rights. We commit to an education system that empowers students, supports families, and promotes American values. Our education system must prepare students for successful lives and well-paying jobs. Yes, absolutely. I agree with literally all of that. So, yes, great start. So let's keep going here. Number 1, great principals and great teachers. Republicans will support schools that focus on excellence and parental rights. We will support ending teacher tenure, adopting merit pay, and allowing various publicly supported educational models. Okay, sure, that sounds great. If you want to know more about teacher tenure and why it's an issue, you can go ahead and check out, I believe it was the first or second episode where I talked about the teachers' unions and the issues with them and whether they're actually good for students or not. You know, well, I'll just link those down below and you can listen for yourself and make up your own minds. Getting back to the Republican National Platform on Education, still on page 13, we are looking at number 2, universal school choice. Republicans believe families should be empowered to choose the best education for their children. We support universal school choice in every state in America. We will expand 529 education savings accounts and support homeschooling families equally. Dude, freaking mic drop. Yes. We always talk about school choice, finding what's right for you and your family. Homeschooling is best because it's the most personalized education that you can get. But if you don't think that that's right for the right fit for your family, how are you going to afford that? Where's your money going for schools? Who's getting paid? All those things. All of those things are covered in previous episodes of the State of Education podcast. I will try to find all of the ones and link them. But really, if you have not listened to the more lecture style sort of solo episodes that I've done, you might want to go back and really listen to those because I break all of these issues down for you. I really wanted to create that backdrop for you so that you didn't have to be confused, because one of the things that the government has done a really great job of is putting how education works behind a curtain, and we're not supposed to acknowledge the man behind the curtain kind of thing. So that's part of what I'm trying to do with this podcast, is peel back that curtain, let you see the education system, how it actually works, and how you can get the most out of it for your student, no matter what type of education fits your family best. Let's go ahead and continue here with the Republican National Platform on education specifically. We're still on page 13. We're looking at number 3, prepare students for jobs and careers. Republicans will emphasize education to prepare students for great jobs and careers, supporting project-based learning and schools that offer meaningful work experience. We will expose politicized education models and fund proven career training programs. I love this so much. So supporting project-based learning, big announcement. I actually signed a deal last week with a couple of absolutely amazing ladies, and we are actually working on a course for homeschoolers specifically on project-based learning, how to use it, how to teach it, what is it even, all of the things. It's coming to the One Room Classroom over at one-roomeducation.com. We're calling it Homeschooler Professional Development. It's a whole section that's going to be in the One Room Classroom, where we help empower homeschool parents and educators of all types so that you feel confident in your ability to pass your knowledge on to the next generation, whether you're a professionally classically trained educator like we are, or whether you're a mom or dad just trying to do the best for your kid. We've got you covered, and the courses are coming, and I'm so excited. So yes to that one. If you want to save your seat for those project-based learning courses that are coming, please do head over to one-roomeducation.com. That's the word one, ONE, -roomeducation.com. And you can join One Room Education either as a monthly subscriber or as a lifetime member, where you pay a one-time fee and you get all access to the entire current library and all future lessons and courses that will be released. You get first access to everything. Really, absolutely outstanding value for what is coming, for what we have coming down the pike. You guys are going to love it. So go ahead and head over there and make sure that you save your seat. All right, number 4, safe, secure, and drug-free schools. Republicans will support overhauling standards on school discipline, advocate for immediate suspension of violent students, and support hardening schools to help keep violence away from our places of learning. Yeah, absolutely. This exact issue is something that we've been talking about on the state of education literally since the beginning. So if you don't follow me over on X or Instagram at oneroom_ed, or even on Facebook at One Room Education, all one word, I'm talking about this stuff all the time. So we even talk about violence in schools and the increased rate of it and reasons that it could be happening over on the blog at oneroomeducation.com. It's a huge issue. We've been talking about it for over 2 years now, almost 3 years. That's crazy to think. But yeah, we've been talking about it this whole time. It's a huge issue, so I absolutely support that. Number 5, restore parental rights. Republicans will restore parental rights in education and enforce our civil rights laws to stop schools from discriminating on the basis of race. We trust parents. Yes, absolutely. Fun fact, we actually have a full article over on one-roomeducation.com where we talk about the Supreme Court overruling affirmative action in higher education and the future implications of that on your students. So that's a great article. I'll make sure to link it in the description for this episode. You'll love it if you're interested in this type of stuff. It really breaks everything down super, super well and in a relatable manner for you. Number 6, knowledge and skills, not CRT and gender indoctrination. Literally, what, like, they must have listened to the podcast or followed One Room Education to get this platform. So Republicans will ensure children are taught fundamentals like reading, history, science, and math, not left-wing propaganda. We will defund schools that engage in inappropriate political indoctrination of our children using federal taxpayer dollars. Hey, man. Yup. Okay, number 7, promote love of community with authentic civics education. Okay, I told you at the top of this episode that I am a certified social studies teacher, and one of the topics that I specialize in is civics education, so super excited to hear about this. Republicans will reinstate the 1776 Commission, promote fair and patriotic civics education, and veto efforts to nationalize civics education. We will support schools that teach America's founding principles and Western civilization. Yes. 8, freedom to pray. Republicans will champion the First Amendment right to pray and read the Bible in school and stand up to those who violate the religious freedoms of American students. Hey, if we can study literally every other religion and their religious texts in depth in public schools, it is literally against the Constitution, for the federal Constitution, for us to not give equal time to Christians. So in public schools. So this is specifically talking about public schools. But like, I graduated high school in 2005, and back then even we talked about all of the different religions in the world. We touched on Christianity, but we were literally told that the teacher wasn't allowed to teach us anything about the actual religion of Christianity. So that's fun. But if we're studying all of the other world religions, it's just discriminatory to not include an overview minimum of the Christian faith, specifically because of the massive impact that it had on shaping Western culture and Western society from pretty much its foundation in Europe. So, huge issue. You totally have to talk about it and all of those things. And I mean, who was it? Was it Thomas Jefferson that had prayers and church services in Congress? Anyways, one of them did. Anyways, that's a whole different episode. The separation of church and state is a completely different episode here. But I don't disagree with number 8 here, but just take it for its face value, I think. Number 9, return education to the states. Yes, thank you. The United States spends more money per pupil on education than any other country in the world, and yet we are at the bottom of every educational list in terms of results. We are going to close the Department of Education in Washington, D.C., and send it back to the states where it belongs, and let the states run our education system as it should be run. Our great teachers, who are so important to the future well-being of our country, will be cherished and protected by the Republican Party so that they can do their job of educating our students that they so dearly want to do. It is our goal to bring education in the United States to the highest level, one that it has never attained before. I do want to interject here and make sure that I mention that the reason that the United States, one of the big reasons that the United States ends up at the bottom of most of the lists here that they're talking about, the international rankings in terms of education, one of the things that the United States does that most, I think all other countries actually, like the US is the only one that does it, we include our special education students in our national results. We do not separate them out whenever we're looking at national test scores. All other countries, as far as I know, if I'm wrong, please let me know in the comments. All other countries take out special education students, so lower IQ ranking students, and send them to separate schools that do not have to participate in the national testing. So they're weeded out. So I do want to throw that in there just as a caveat for the statement of ending up at the bottom of the educational rankings for the world. So some context there that is literally never talked about because it is not sexy, it is not pretty, and it is not politically correct to talk about it. So yeah, there's that. All right. I also wanted to cover page 14, which they have titled Chapter 8, Bringing Common Sense to Government and Renew the Pillars of American Civilization. This is a very important topic that we talk about all the time, both on the blog over at one-roomeducation.com and here on the State of Education podcast. Literally, number 1, empower American families. Yes, so I am going to go ahead and read this page. I'm going to go through it pretty quickly. I really might skip a couple of these points, but we're going to kind of give this a quick overview just so that you get the full context of what the Republican platform actually is in regard to family and education, because that's what we talk about here at One Room Education is family and education, because without a stable family unit, you are not able to receive information in an effective manner, aka education. So on page 14 of the Republican National Committee platform, Chapter 8, bringing common sense to government and renew the pillars of American civilization. Our commitment. Republicans offer a plan to renew American civilization with common sense policies that support families, restores law and order, cares for veterans, promotes beauty, and honors American history. We commit to strengthening the foundations of our society for a brighter future. Yep, absolutely. Number 1, empower American families. Republicans will promote a culture that values the sanctity of marriage, the blessings of childhood, the foundational role of families, and supports working parents. We will end policies that punish families. That is something, if you don't know about policies that punish families, you might want to go ahead and do your own research on that. I don't want to get too political. Obviously, this entire episode is on politics, so that's kind of a silly statement. But I don't want to get too far into the weeds as far as political policies go. So let's go ahead and look at this. This is a big one. Number 2 is a huge one. I talk about it all the time. Rebuild our cities and restore law and order. Republicans will restore safety to our neighborhoods by replenishing police departments, restoring common sense policing, and protecting officers from frivolous lawsuits. We will stand up to Marxist prosecutors, vigorously defend the right of every American to live in peace, and we will compassionately address homelessness to restore order to our streets. If you live in an unsafe environment, you cannot focus on your education. We talk about this all the time on the podcast. Okay. Number 5 on page 14, make colleges and universities sane and affordable. The verbiage on here is really entertaining to me. Republicans will fire radical left accreditators, drive down tuition costs, restore due process protections, and pursue civil rights cases against schools that discriminate. That is literally what I'm talking about whenever we talk about the article covering the Supreme Court overturning affirmative action in higher education. That's literally what we're talking about. Because for those of you who don't know, affirmative action in education says that there's too many white and Asian students that are getting into the higher end sort of Ivy League type schools. So we have to admit less white and Asian students and admit more minority students, even if it's not a good fit for them as a university. So that's a totally different episode. So coming your way from the vault. This is the one that I really wanted to bring your attention to. Number 7, overcome the crisis in liberal arts education. Republicans support the restoration of classic liberal arts education. So yes, that essentially what that is a classical education where you learn the basics of reading, writing, arithmetic, history, science, just the basics. But then the liberal arts aspect is you actually learn how to critically evaluate the information that you are receiving in a variety of ways. That is a terrible simplification of what a classical education is, but basically that's what we're talking about. And then number 9, we're going to skip number 8 and we'll go to number 9, honor American history. Republicans celebrate our great American heroes and are proud that the story of America makes everyone free. We will organize a national celebration to mark the 250th anniversary of the founding of the United States of America. Okay, so that pretty much covers everything. The last point that I did want to touch on was on page 15 under chapter 9, government by, and for the people. Let me see, where is it here? Under number 5, Republicans will end left-wing gender insanity. Yeah, sure. The verbiage is a little crazy again, but that's fine. It says, we will keep men out of women's sports, ban taxpayer funding for sex change surgeries, and stop taxpayer funded schools from promoting gender transition, reverse Biden's radical rewrite of Title IX education regulations, and restore protections for women and girls. I mean, yeah, I completely agree with that. So that is the Republican National Committee's platform on education for 2024. Again, this will be linked in the description for you to read. I highly, 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 I cannot say highly enough. I encourage you, I implore you to go and read both of these national platforms for yourself. Do not take what I am saying for granted. Do not take anything that politicians say at face value. Go back and read the national platforms, because what the national platform is what state and local, typically state and local politicians that subscribe to these individual parties will adhere to a degree to the national party platform. So make sure that you understand what the national party platform is to understand what your state and local party platforms are. So please, please make sure that you're looking this stuff up and doing your own due diligence to be an informed voter. It is your civic responsibility, if you choose to vote informed. Okay? Please, for the love of God, if you are not going to inform yourself and actually look into these documents and look into the candidates themselves and what their actual background is, not what political adversaries are saying about them, like actually look into them yourself, please, for the love of God, don't vote. I'm actually saying that. Get yourself educated, whether it's from a podcast like this or whether it's actually looking at the documents yourself. Educate yourself on what's actually being said. Firsthand documentation like these party platforms. Then go vote. If you have any questions about any of this stuff, please send me a message. I'm available on X and Instagram and TikTok even at oneroom_ed, or you can find us on on Facebook, Rumble, and YouTube at One Room Education, all one word. Okay? I'm available. Or you can contact us through the contact page on one-roomeducation.com. That's the word one, ONE-roomeducation.com. I am here to help you understand and critically evaluate the education system here in the US and internationally if I can. Look at the education system, critically evaluate it, and then find actionable steps to actually make some lasting change. And in the meantime, if you want to home educate your students, well, you work to make the public education system a little bit better for people that can't or don't know how to home educate, all the better. Awesome. So, anyways, I'll get off that soapbox now. Let's go ahead and head over to the Democratic National Committee platform, the Democratic Party National Platform from 2024, which I actually had to go to Ballotpedia. If you do not know about Ballotpedia.com, I will make sure that that is linked in the description as well. It is my favorite place to go for resources that have anything to do with anything regarding government. So let's go ahead and review this just like we did for the Republican one. I'm just going to kind of read it. And as you can see, it's not bullet pointed. So I'm just going to have to read it. And yeah, well, it's a lot more words. All right, so this starts the education specific section of the Democratic National Party platform. Starts on page 27 of the PDF available on the internet, and it's literally just titled education because straight to the point. Awesome. I love that. So let's just go ahead and dive into this. It states Democrats fundamentally believe that every student deserves a quality education regardless of their parents' zip code or income. Yes. Yes, mic drop, absolutely fabulous. Love the start. This is amazing. That is literally what one room education talks about all the time. That's why I started one room education, was because my tutoring business, I could not reach enough students that needed my help. That's why I started one room education. So, because that's exactly what I believe. I grew up in a poor rural area in the Rust Belt, and it's a cause that is near and dear to my heart, that students' education should not be limited by their parents' income or where they live. Yes, 1000% agree with that. My God, I didn't know I would agree with any of this, but I'm very excited about it. Moving on. We know that education starts well before a kid goes to kindergarten. Studies show that children who attend preschool are nearly 50% more likely to finish high school and go on to earn a 2 or 4 year degree, no matter their background. That's why Democrats will provide free universal preschool for 4-year-olds, saving the families of 5 million children $13,000 a year. Okay. And there it is. Not a fan of that. So it's not because I don't think that early education is important. Couldn't be farther from the truth. Early education, 0 to 7 years of age, is the pinnacle of when you need to be introducing students to language and number theories and social emotional intelligence, all of these things that they need to learn that set the foundation for their education and future success are so important for them to learn. However, I do not agree that a universal preschool program is what's going to do that, because they show that nearly 50% are more likely to finish high school and go on to earn a 2 to 4 year degree. As I pointed out in the Government's War on Education 3-part special series on the State of Education podcast, I will make sure to have those linked as well. Wow, there's going to be a lot of links in this description. Sorry about that, but I've shared a lot of knowledge with you guys. So, as I showed in that, the rate of 2 to 4 year degree attainment does not reflect future career success. Okay? High school graduation does not reflect future career success. It doesn't. All it says is that, awesome, we started your kid off at 4 years old with quote unquote free education. And now we're going to have them do, instead of, let's see, 5 to 18 is 13 years. And then another 5 is 18 years. So instead of having them go for 18 years of education, we're going to have them go for 19 or 20 years of education before they can actually, quote unquote, education, before they can actually be considered an adult, a free thinker, a independent entity that can now go off into society and into the workforce and create a living in a society that will benefit everyone. I fundamentally disagree with that premise. The children should be with their parents or a stable caregiver for the first 5 to 7 years of their life minimum, with education built into their lifestyle. And fun fact, I'm actually working on a course on how to build that lifestyle for new parents that will be available in the One Room Classroom over on one-roomeducation.com. So make sure that you put your email in to get the free subscription to the website so that you don't miss when those new courses drop. Thank you so much. All right, moving on. So it sounds great. It sounds great in theory. We're going to save over 5 million working families $13,000 a year. I want to see where preschool costs $13,000 a year, what caliber of academic rigor that school has, and if it is actually developmentally appropriate curricula for those students, or if we're pushing developmentally inappropriate curriculum on younger and younger students. So that's a whole nother episode, guys. But lots of questions on that point. Okay. Moving on to the next statement on page 27 for the Democratic National Platform. In wake of the oh, Jesus, are we still talking about the pandemic? Okay. That's fine. I'm sorry. Keep reading, Katie. In the wake of the pandemic, that's especially urgent. The American Rescue Plan made the biggest investment in public education in history, providing $130 billion with a B dollars to help 15,000 districts reopen, rebuild, and catch kids up. We just released an episode. I literally just released an episode this week. This is going to be a bonus episode. Hey, you're welcome. About the lasting impacts that COVID is having, the COVID pandemic policies that they're referencing here are having on students and their behaviors, their academic achievements or lack thereof. And there's literally no catching a student up. There's not. There's not. Don't listen to them. That is a lie. That is a straight up fallacy. Don't listen to that. Continuing. Funding that has worked to help our children learn. The historic investment spurred long overdue improvements in school facilities and indoor air quality. Why can't we just put the kids outside? That's my question. But, that probably goes back to the safe learning environments from the Republicans, but whatever. Indoor air quality, creating safe and healthy learning environments for students and school staff. Since then, we've also provided an additional $2 billion, with a B again, $billion, to high-need Title I schools. Okay, that's cool. For those of you who don't know, Title I is a low-income program provided by the Federal Department of Education. It's funding for after-school programs, reading assistance, Head Start, that type of stuff. So it's not a totally terrible program, but again, not the responsibility of the federal government in my view and opinion, and also in the Founding Fathers' opinion, but in our current situation, not the worst program that the Federal Department of Education has. Getting back to this, we've helped districts nationwide train and hire 14,000 more counselors and social workers so kids can heal from the disruptions of COVID and cope with the fear of gun violence in order to focus on learning. Okay, that's literally what I was just talking about. You aren't able to focus on learning in an unsafe and unsecure environment. They're not addressing the underlying issues and causes behind those issues. Just throwing that out there. We increased investment in full-service community schools fivefold, providing healthcare, nutrition, job training, and other wraparound services for kids at school, investing in their futures and making families' lives easier. Okay, literally the only thing that a public school should be doing for their community is providing education, maybe job training. But can you explain to me why education and job training are listed separately? That just make sense to me. And wraparound services, we'll have to look into what specifically they're talking about with that. If anyone knows, can you educate me and let me know what the wraparound services are? Specifically in the comments. I would really appreciate that because that's something that I am unfamiliar with that term. So if you could help me learn something new, I would really appreciate that. I have a goal of learning one new thing minimum per day. So if somebody could explain to me what that specific term means, I would really appreciate it. Continuing with the Democratic National Platform for 2024 in education, specifically on page 27 of the PDF, the administration supports a multitude of approaches that have been proven to help students learn. Reducing chronic absenteeism by building social and emotional supports at school, offering literacy programs, and setting high expectations for student attendance, providing intensive tutoring, extending the school day and school year. Why are we extending the school day? Why? It's already too long. The school year, okay, so year-round schooling actually has been proven time and time again to actually be more beneficial than the traditional school year that we're used to here in North America. So I'll give them that one. But extending the school day, are you freaking kidding me? The kids are gone for 7 to 8 hours a day in general. How long would you like them to be with you? And what in the hell are you expecting them to quote unquote learn while they're there for that long with you? Like, seriously. Okay, that one just made me mad. Continuing, expanding community schools and helping schools to lift student achievement rather than pushing them based on state standardized tests. I don't necessarily disagree with that one. We support fully funding IDEA to prioritize students with disabilities and the special education workforce. Okay, they're already prioritized. That's why they're in special education. They get special funding. Yeah. We support efforts to provide more timely, well-rounded, actionable feedback on student learning and progress to educators and to families that will support instruction and student success while upholding rigorous academic standards. Okay, why? This is the third time that I've read this. So why are those two things listed separately? Because if we're supporting instruction and student success, that literally should be upholding rigorous academic standards. How are those two things separate? That's my question. That's my question. Okay. If somebody could explain that to me, I would love that. We oppose the use of private school vouchers, tuition tax credits, opportunity scholarships, and other schemes that divert taxpayer-funded resources away from public education. Oh my goodness gracious. Public tax dollars should never be used to discriminate. Okay, I have to call bullshit. Okay, so public dollars should never be used to discriminate, so we can't give students private school vouchers, tuition credits, or opportunity scholarships. But if we go back to the top, do you remember what they started out with their little statement was? Democrats, let me remind you. Democrats fundamentally believe that every student deserves a quality education regardless of their parents' zip code or income. But then down here, just a couple paragraphs later, you're saying that you oppose private school vouchers, tuition tax credits, and opportunity scholarships because it's somehow discriminatory against students who are low income and live in a zip code that doesn't have a well-performing public school. So you want those students to be stuck there? Just throwing that out there. That just made me mad. Continuing. And we'll continue working to increase accountability at charters, because why would you want students to have a public charter option, right? Oh my God. Sorry. And we'll continue working to increase accountability at charters, holding them to the same transparency standards as public schools. We'll prioritize education in cutting-edge STEM fields as well, especially for students from underrepresented communities, preparing every child to compete and thrive. The way that you prepare every child to compete and thrive is to provide equal opportunity to all students for a top tier education, regardless of their zip code. Right, Democratic Party? Anyways, and if you have any questions about this, like I do, like legit questions like I do about this, then make sure to ask your local Democratic Party representatives why these things are listed separately, what's going on, why are we prioritizing cutting edge STEM fields if that's not what these students are wanting to go into. I thought that we were trying to get them ready to go into a workforce and be successful adults. Oh, wait, no, that's right. We're trying to get them to go into 2 and 4 year higher education institutions so that you can milk some more money out of their tax dollars, right? But, that's both parties, though, like the actual, like, uniparty type stuff. But the Democratic Party just put it into their platform. So that's fun. Moving forward on page 26 of the Democratic National Platform in regard to education, and we're working to provide every student with a pathway to multilingual education while ensuring equitable access to a high quality education for English learners who've historically been underserved. I did an entire episode called Equity versus Equality, which is actually better. Please go back and listen to that. I will make sure that that is linked in the description also, because the verbiage that's used is more important than the rest of the sentence. Okay, moving forward. A quality post-secondary, see, this is exactly what I just said. Okay, moving forward. A quality post-secondary education should be a ticket to the middle class, but the cost that many folks face for higher education today is crippling families, futures, and our entire economy. It has become a barrier to opportunity. Democrats will make quality, affordable post-secondary education a path forward again. Okay, I don't necessarily disagree with that entire statement, okay? Yes, the Democrats are trying to create that funnel towards post-secondary institutions, so colleges, 2 and 4 year collegiate institutions, but a quality, affordable post-secondary education would be great. But the federal subsidies that are provided by the Federal Department of Education for these degrees are what have increased historically the tuition costs. So just throwing that out there as a cause and effect, as opposed to here's the problem, let's look at a solution, instead of the historical context that got us here. So, but as a social studies teacher, I'm always looking at historical context of situations, right? All right, moving forward, we are now on page 28 of the Democratic National Platform in regard to education. 4-year college is not the only pathway to a good career, so Democrats are investing in other forms of education as well, including career and technical education. Love that. That's awesome. The administration is exploring job training partnerships that connect high schools, local businesses, and labor unions to prepare students for good jobs in high skill, high wage, and in demand industries. I absolutely love that. That's awesome. That's absolutely amazing. These used to be called apprenticeships, by the way. You could job shadow different, more professional sort of white collar jobs, and then you could actually apprentice during high school with the more blue collar jobs. So this is really cool if this is actually something that they want to bring back. It'll make trade school and community college, there it is. Okay. It'll make trade school and community college free for every American. How is it free? How is it free? Literally, the only There is nothing free in America. Everything is paid for out of your pocket and your hard work and your life that is spent away from your family working for someone else or yourself, depending, because the self-employment tax is absolutely ridiculous. Take it from me. I know. Okay. So whenever a federal or national party says that something will be free, they are full of shit because you're paying for it anyways. Unless you are on government subsidies and you don't work, so you're not paying for anything anyways, there's literally nothing that's free to you. Okay? You're paying for literally everything. Continuing. And it's making record investments in registered apprenticeships. There you go. Registered apprenticeships, which already train more than 1 million Americans a year across industries, including cutting edge industries. What counts as a cutting edge industry? That's a weird statement. Some 90% of them stay on as full hires, earning an average starting salary of $80,000 a year. That's awesome. Absolutely. If you're looking at like carpenter union apprenticeships or any union apprenticeship, they typically have apprenticeship programs where you can get a lower salary until you build up the skills that are required for a journeyman in that industry. So that's like a certified tradesperson essentially. And then you can make bank on that. So that's actually a pretty good idea. But that's already a program. Those are already programs that are available. So, and they're not free. I mean, they're free to the person participating, but they're not like free. So, whatever, to each their own, I suppose. Getting back to this, that's a path to the middle class that families can count on. Yeah, except for free education that the middle class families have to pay for anyways in higher tax rates. So that's fun. There's that. Keep that in mind. A majority of college students graduate with student debt. It can be overwhelming stress as snowballing interest follows folks for decades, defining the choices they make and the jobs they take and holding back the entire economy. Yes, you know what? As someone that took on almost $25,000 in original student loan debt, I can attest that I have paid nearly $25,000 in student loans since I graduated from college. But guess how much I still owe? $22,000 in student loans because of compounding interest, something we're not taught about in any high school, because if we know about compound interest, we won't sign up for the government loans that they can then make the money on. But if we do teach them about that, then they won't be able to take advantage of silly, naive students anymore, right? And make money off of that. However, I do want to say that it is under the purview of the executive branch. So literally an executive order that gets signed that can take the federal student loan interest rate to zero or like 0.1%. However, because they do need to fund the infrastructure. So if you're going to continue to provide federally subsidized student loans to 17, 18-year-olds, please write an executive order that the student loan repayment rate, the student loan repayment interest rate will be below 6% where it currently sits. And they're going to say, well, Katie, you know what? That interest rate is set by Congress and not the executive branch. Yeah, it is because the executive branch gave their power over to the legislative branch. And you know what? Those executive orders that the Biden-Harris administration has been signing, trying to get student loan forgiveness by the wave of a pen, this is how you do it. This is how you do it. You sign an executive order that the interest rate is set to 0 or 1%, 1% for, administrative overhead. And that's it. And no compound interest. It's a flat, straight interest that you pay on the total amount of the originated loan. That would actually be helpful. But what do I know? I'm just some chick with an education website and a podcast. So there is that. Moving on with this. Although Republican appointees on the Supreme Court blocked the president's initial student debt relief plan for 40 million borrowers, he has not stopped using every available tool to provide relief. Yes, he did. His administration already approved the cancellation of $167 billion in loans for nearly 5 million borrowers, including nearly 1 million public servants like teachers, nurses, and police. And it has outlined plans to deliver relief to 30 million borrowers in all. Meanwhile, its new SAVE plan is the most affordable student loan repayment plan in history, helping 8 million Americans, including more than 4.5 million, who now have a $0 monthly payment. Okay. These savings will transform lives, freeing people to buy a house, to start a family, or to launch businesses with new hope. Okay. Yes, but okay. If you look back at 18-year-old Katie signing her student loan documents to go to school, right? Because I wanted to be a teacher. I wanted to be an educator. That's my calling in life. In my soul is to be an educator. So in order to get an education, it's a highly regulated field that requires a college degree. So I signed on the dotted line between the ages of 18 and 22, and I took on that student debt. Now, I took on the responsibility of that and knew that I was going to have to pay it back. So that's fine. However, what I did not understand was the close to 500 pages of documents that were set in front of me to overwhelm me. And I also didn't understand the idea of compound interest and what that really meant on a loan that massive, right? If you are not fully educating these people on what they're actually getting into, then those are false. Those are false loans, right? You can't give somebody 500 plus pages of documentation, say sign here, here, and here if you want to go to college and live out your dreams, and then say that those documents informed their consent, quote unquote, informed their consent, right? It is not informed consent whenever you put 500 pages of information in front of a 17 or 18-year-old and tell them to sign on the dotted line if they want their future. Right? Not necessarily reducing the monthly payments to zero, because that means that they're not repaying the loan. It's essentially debt forgiveness. But reducing the interest rate, getting rid of the compound interest, and then reducing the interest rate. Flat interest rate, low interest rate. Okay? That's how you actually help people. It still makes them accountable for their decisions whenever they're legal adults, but it gives them a little bit of a relief that, let's be honest, we all need in this current economy. So let's go ahead and keep going on page 28 of the Democratic National Platform. In regard to education, for young people just heading to college now, we've already secured the largest increase in Pell grants in a decade, and will further expand these grants to 7 million more students and double the maximum award by 2029. We've invested a record $16 billion with a B dollars in historically Black colleges and universities, HBCUs, and we're working and we're working to subsidize tuition to all minority serving institutions for anyone whose family earns less than $125,000 a year. Okay. Again, minority serving institutions. The Supreme Court already struck down affirmative action in higher education, and I'm wondering if this particularly is going to fall under that purview. I don't know, but we'll see. Also, question about this. Is it just for minorities, or is it for all low income families? And are we counting $125,000 a year in combined household income, low income now? Legit question. I have questions, okay? Questions that need answered. And see, if you would have just bullet pointed it like the Republican Party did, I wouldn't have all these questions. So, moving forward. While Democrats work to make the promise of education available to everyone, Trump just sees school as another opportunity for a scam. Okay, literally, you're putting in your national platform stuff about the other party's candidate. Okay, that is literally inappropriate. You're supposed to be telling us what you're doing. What are your arguments, and how are you gonna make our lives better? This stuff right here is absolutely inappropriate and makes me very angry, because a party platform is not the place for campaigning against the other party's candidate. It's for espousing the merits of your argument. And apparently the merits of your argument are still Orange Man bad. Way to go, DNC. Anyways, let me see if I can get through this without having an aneurysm. While Democrats work to make the promise of education available to everyone, Trump just sees schools as another opportunity for a scam. Trump University not only conned thousands of people into buying worthless degrees, it saddled them with thousands in debt. Oh, I don't know, a general liberal arts degree, or feminist studies, or gender theories, or gender studies, anything like that that's available for, I don't know, roughly $125,000 for a 4-year degree from an Ivy League university, if not more than that. Something like that, you mean? No, don't be silly, though. Don't be silly. And not only are Republicans trying to block our student debt relief, it's not relief, it's complete forgiveness. They are slashing funding for job training that ensures workers can access good paying jobs without a 4-year degree. Not true. We already talked about this over on the Republican platform. They're increasing visibility of these programs that already exist in the private sector and are not required to be available through the public sector. See, that's the main difference, I think, between these two party platforms. Is one party's platform is saying we're going to work with private industry so that the federal government doesn't have to take in more money, and you can keep more of your money in your pocket with tax rebates. And the other one is saying, oh, no, you don't get a choice in where your kid goes to school. We will tell you that we want your kid to have a choice, no matter where you live or what your income level is. But in action and in practicality, that's not what they're saying. Read beyond the first line. Read beyond the headlines, guys. You'll be able to see what every single thing that these politicians want to do, right, left, up, down, Republican, Democrat, doesn't matter. Read beyond the headlines and you'll find the information that you're looking for. Let's go ahead and finish this up on the bottom of page 27, the last paragraph here. At the same time, Democrats have educators' backs. Teachers, education support professionals, paraprofessionals, and school-related personnel, and specialized institutional support personnel are the heart and soul of our communities. They give so much for themselves and inspire our children to dream. The administration has canceled student loan debt for more than 942,000 public servants, including educators. Public school educators also deserve a raise. We'll recruit more new teachers, paraprofessionals, and school-related personnel, and educational support professionals, with the option for some to even start training in high school, and will help school support staff to advance in their own careers with a living wage. We will improve working conditions and support to help make teaching a sustainable and affordable profession. We'll keep investing in partnerships with HBCUs, MSIs, and tribal colleges and universities to strengthen and diversify the teacher pipeline so students of every background can see themselves at the head of a classroom and in charge of their schools. Okay, the last part, every student should be able to see themselves as a teacher. Every person should see themselves as a teacher or educator. That's literally what we talk about all the time here on the State of Education podcast and over on one-roomeducation.com on the blog. We talk about the fact that every person, regardless of whether you have a degree or not, is an educator. That's why we specifically use the terminology educator in our mission statement. You do not need to have a piece of paper to efficiently pass knowledge from one generation to the next. And that's all this is. This is just more gatekeeping. Okay? It's unnecessary, and it's a bunch of words strung together. I don't even know who these people are talking to be completely honest. So far as real education policy goes, I don't really agree with the Democratic platform that much, but I mean, anybody that watches or listens to this podcast or follows One Room Education, that really shouldn't be a surprise to you. I just wanted to break down and actually read for you what both parties' national platforms are in regard to education and give you my thoughts on them. I had not actually read the platforms before now. I don't know if you could tell in some of my responses, but I wanted to make sure to give you guys as candid of a response as possible and as candid of insight as possible in regard to the actual education platforms, because it is so important to make sure that these people that we put in office that are supposed to represent us actually represent us and our values. So with that, I'm going to get off of this soapbox and I'm going to head out for the day. Thank you so much for joining me as we dove into the national party platforms on education for the two major parties here in the United States. This is a special edition bonus episode of the State of Education podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode, if you found it insightful or at least a little bit helpful, or you just think I'm a psycho, that's awesome too. Whatever. To each their own. If you would like to support us in our mission to empower parents, students, and educators to take back control of their education and help foster the most free and prosperous generation yet, please do head over to one-roomeducation.com. That's the word one, ONE-roomeducation.com. You can sign up for emails, notifications whenever we post new content, either for the blog or the podcast. And you can also subscribe to one of our paid tiers where you will support not only our mission, but you will also have access to the lessons and courses that we are getting ready to drop here from One Room Education, directly from the One Room classroom. I'm so excited about where we're going and what we're doing, the partnerships, all the work I've been doing in the background to provide you guys with the information and the resources that you need, that you've been begging me to provide you. They're coming, I promise. So if you can head over there and look at all the ways to support us, I would really appreciate it. So With that, thank you so much for joining me. If you'd like more directly from me, I personally run all of our social media accounts. You can find us on Instagram, X, and TikTok at oneroom_ed, and you can find us on Facebook, YouTube, and Rumble at One Room Education, all one word. With that, thank you so much for joining me today for this very special bonus edition of the State of Education, and I look forward to seeing you next time as we continue to discuss the state of education.